Look, this is for everybody. One of the reasons I love this is there isn't a culture that I've talked to that hasn't had some experience with it, right? And I'm not going to say Antarctica. I don't know what they do there, but all the other continents, there are people whose family has been doing cupping for a long time. And so sharing that history, sharing that experience, try a safe and effective therapy. I mean, that's where I am with it.
You are here for a reason, but navigating this human life can be challenging. How do you care for your body, mind, and spirit to make the most of your time here on Earth? How can you harness your incredible human potential? In this podcast, we explore these questions and more to help you craft your best life yet. Welcome to I Am Human. Hello, humans. Welcome to another episode of I Am Human, and I'm your host, Dr. Yami, and I am so happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, please follow or subscribe to my podcast in whatever podcast platform you use. And if you could take a moment to rate and review it, and also share any episodes that you think may benefit others, I would greatly appreciate it. To be human means to be open to and accepting of traditional allopathic medical treatments and philosophies, the ones that we commonly have here in the Western world. But it also means to learn about and open yourself up to methods of healing and philosophies from other cultures. And my guest today, Dr. Tom Ingegno, is here to help us learn more about one of those healing methods that you may not know very much about. Dr. Tom Ingegno, DACM, LAC, is a clinician, speaker, and the best-selling author of The Cupping Book, Unlocking the Secrets of Ancient Healing. Dr. Tom owns and operates City Integrative Health, a multifaceted clinic, New York Times bestseller, and futurist David Houle called The Future of Medicine. His clinic provides a multidimensional approach to reducing inflammation, improving circulation, and regulating the immune system to help people thrive. In addition to a quarter century of clinical experience, Dr. Tom has taught at two universities of East Asian medicine and served as chair of the Maryland Board of Acupuncture. Dr. Tom has been featured in both consumer and professional media, spreading his message of health using modern research, traditional practices, and humor to make complex theories and treatments understandable. His professional passion is to help patients and like-minded practitioners develop no-nonsense practices to allow people to maximize their health. So I was excited to have Dr. Tom on the podcast because I knew nothing about cupping. So I was interested in learning more about it because I'm curious by nature and learn what he had to say. And his book is very easy to read, very understandable. It's called The Cupping Book. So if it's something that you'd like to learn more about, I recommend that you pick up a copy. And he sent me a little kit where I got some silicone cups and I got to try it myself at home. So it's something that's very interesting. In this podcast, we talk about what cupping is, where it originated and how long ago, the benefits of cupping, what conditions are typically treated with cupping, if it's safe, if it's painful. Does it always cause those round bruise-like marks? What are the contraindications? And how can you start doing it yourself at home? And when should you seek a professional to get professional help with cupping or other modalities? So I think it's a very informative episode. So if you're interested in cupping and if it's something that could help you, then definitely take a listen to this episode. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for coming back again and again. And if you're new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And now let us welcome Dr. Tom Ingegno. The information on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to replace careful evaluation and treatment. If you have concerns about your health or well-being, please consult a healthcare professional. Dr. Tom Ingegno, nice to meet you. Welcome to I Am Human.
I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I've definitely never talked about cupping on my show because I have never had cupping done and never learned about it. So I was super excited to learn more about it. I did read your book, the cupping book, and I tried to do a little cupping on myself. So we'll get more into that and techniques and, some tips so that I can try it again a little bit more effectively this time. But first of all, let's hear about your background and how you even became interested in this.
Yeah, everybody likes the origin story, don't they? So I've been a licensed acupuncturist for 23 years now. And the better term is East Asian medicine practitioner, right? Sometimes you'll hear Chinese medicine or they'll specifically call out one country, but my program not only did it teach acupuncture and acupuncture from various traditions, but Chinese herbal medicine. We talked about lifestyle changes, this concept of yang shen, which is like nourishing life throughout life, your whole lifetime. Meditation, um, qigong, which is breathing exercises, tai chi, which is technically a big qigong, but it's also a martial art. And all of these things that we do to keep our bodies up and running, right? So that includes stuff that you're going to be doing at home that patients should be, learning from their practitioners that, in the modern medical system, we don't have time for that. But when your acupuncture treatment's an hour long and you're sitting there resting, we can have some conversations about these things. How I got started was very weird. I was lined up as a pre-med major. I was going to be a doctor because I wanted to help people like so many people do. Very noble cause. And a few things happened along the way that were, almost out of my control. And looking back now, a decade, 2.5 decades later, they couldn't have happened any other way. So pre-med and during my junior year of college, I'll give you the short version. I received a postcard in the mail from an acupuncture school about an open house. Now, I had enough credits because I had things carrying in from high school. I had extra electives. I had advanced placement where they're like, look, you could actually enter this program now because our undergrad, there's no doctorate, there's no master's or undergrad for Chinese medicine. So they give you a bachelor's as well as a master's. And I seamlessly snuck in my second semester of my junior year, skipped a year of college and never looked back.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. A lot of weird stuff before that too, but this show's only an hour.
No extended version today, huh?
No, it's all right.
Okay. Well, cool. So you know how to do a lot of things, acupuncture and all kinds of different modalities, but let's talk a little bit about cupping.
Yeah.
A lot of people may have seen images of people that have had cupping, but probably most people that are listening to this podcast have never experienced it for themselves. So if you could tell us a little bit about what it is, what is cupping?
So cupping is a therapy that is actually older than acupuncture. It's one of the earliest traditional forms of medicine, probably before massage or massage and herbal medicine was probably older. But within it, it basically requires some kind of vessel. We call it a cup because it looks like a cup, and traditionally we can use cups as well. But anything that can create a suction. So traditionally we would use fire to remove oxygen from that cup, adhere it to the body, and it would create a vacuum and pull the skin up into the cup. Classically, they would use clay pots. Water buffalo horns, one of the earliest ones that we know about. Pieces of bamboo cut right off at that section, so they had a lid, a top to them. Um, and the idea here is to increase circulation, right? So we know that if we can increase circulation to an area, we get two functions, right? We're going to flush out that tissue. So any inflammatory response that may be in that joint or in those muscles gets flushed out. But we also draw fresh blood to that area. And fresh blood is kind of how we heal, right? The nutrients, the oxygen, everything in that body can repair itself with fresh blood. So this technique, the earliest writings go back to 1515 BC in Egypt, at least the ones we know of. So China had known about it through the Silk Trade Route, and probably earlier than it was called the Silk Trade Route. But within that, it wasn't done by Chinese physicians publicly until about 350 AD. And part of that was this was always folk medicine, right? It's grandma's medicine. So, part of the reason, and I know you might ask me to elaborate on this later, but part of the reason I wrote this book is this is something that belongs across cultures. I mean, it's spread everywhere. We don't know how it got to South America in that time period as well, but South America had it. Anytime I was teaching a class, my acupuncture school, my second acupuncture school that I taught at was in Manhattan, and we had a lot of foreign exchange students, and every single one of them would say grandma used to do that, right? And what better, like, who are you going to listen to? I mean, grandma makes the chicken soup. We know that's that has immune stimulating functions. So what else was grandma right about? And it turns out, even according to modern systematic reviews, this cupping technique does hold water. It does help people with a lot of different conditions. So why not teach that to people and put it back in their hands so they can do it at home before they even need to see, a healthcare professional?
Yes, it's almost going like a full 360 because it originated as something that was practiced at home. Then time passes and maybe you just think of it as something that you have to go get at a clinic.
Yeah,
But right now you're saying is like, okay, well, let's learn how to do this at home.
yeah,
It's relatively safe. It's been used for thousands of years.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, so you kind of talked a little bit about what it does and how it works, but what are the benefits of cupping?
So the number one thing we talk about is neck and shoulder pain, low back pain, right? When we're doing cupping in the office, we use fire cupping, which I would recommend that, home users avoid that. There's plenty of techniques, silicone cups, cups with pumps. My book covers all that, the different styles that you can use for home use. But the idea is, the other reason that I like this technique is it's pretty intuitive. Hey, it hurts here. Okay, let's look at those muscle groups in those areas. Now, traditionally, when you're using something that has a hard rim, say like a glass cup or bamboo that we would use in our clinic, you can't fit those on the smaller areas of the body. So these new silicone cups allow us to put cups on areas that are smaller, like the forearms, the upper arms, the neck, the legs as well, and get some benefits of getting that circulation to that tissue as well.
hmm So, one of the very obvious things is using it just for pain, like
Yeah.
musculoskeletal pain,
Yeah.
but can it be used for any other health
Yeah,
conditions?
so classically, and this is one of the things where I get to reference Godfather Part 2, which you don't get to do every day. But there is a scene in Godfather Part 2 where the grandmother is treating Fredo, who I think is the youngest kid, as an infant, right? Because he had he was like prone to colds. I think they said he was a weak constitution or something like that in the movie. So they actually show him getting a cup put right on the center of his chest. And I think it was like an old school drinking glass, because it was done the old way. But because cupping is increasing circulation, and what some research shows is it's increasing circulation up to 6 inches deep. We see it used for respiratory disorders. We see it used for digestive disorders, and all of those things. If there's a blood flow issue or something that we can do to stimulate more blood flow there, so if you're sick and you want more white blood cells to the area, well, getting more blood flow there is how you do that. So we can see some improvement in these areas too. Of course, those are less researched. So even though there is some studies that do support that, the catchphrase at the end of any study on PubMed is more research is needed. Yeah,
Of
so
course.
everyone's covering themselves and they're not making a claim that may or may not be true. But classically, these indications have been used for, well, over 4,000 years.
Well, that's a good place to ask one of the first questions I had. Is it safe?
Yeah.
Is it safe to do? And I guess my next question, because I had never tried it or had it done until I tried it on myself this weekend. Is it painful?
So there's an it depends to all of this. It is absolutely safe with some guidelines, right? There's certain people that shouldn't have it done to them. There's certain conditions that we don't want to do, and there's framework to work in. Now, if we remove the fire cupping, which tends to be a little bit stronger, and you have an open flame, it gets infinitely more safe. Silicone cups, they kind of limit themselves to how strong the suction can get. So you're not going to overdo that easily. In general, if you follow guidelines of treating like under 15 minutes in an area, if you're not going over an open wound, if the person you're treating is not pregnant, if they don't have blood thinners in their system at an excessive level, if they're not hemophiliacs, all of those things should be fine. What we're trying to do is actually break the capillaries at the surface of the skin, which gives it that perfectly circular hickey, for lack of a better term. Now, within that, it might be dark, it might not be. That comes down to how long it's been in that area, how well your blood vessels are structured, how much circulation you have through that. So it's not darker is better, lighter is worse, or you got to go for the dark. Staying within that 10 to 15-minute time frame will keep you on the safe side of things. The sensations are going to depend largely on how strong you get that cup on. So, for some people, especially when we do the fire cupping and we're trying to get it on very strong, the first couple of minutes are intense. It's an odd sensation of your skin being pulled away from your body. Now, what ends up happening is as that blood kind of fills in, it softens up the fascia, softens up the skin and the muscles. Those cups feel extremely relaxing. So in that window, towards that 10-minute mark, people start to relax a lot. So if you're having it done, and this we talk a little bit about in the book, if you're going to be doing it on your back, your neck, your shoulders, those are great spots to relax. You're going to need somebody to help you put them on, of course. But in about that 10-15 minute window, if you're, laying face down on the couch, or even better yet, if you have a home massage table, you might find yourself snoring. It happens pretty often. When we do it in clinic, we're probably doing cupping between me and the other practitioners 10 to 20 times a day. And more often than not, they'll go, "Ooh, that's a little intense." And you go, "Okay, well, we can make it softer if we need to." No, 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 let me ride this out. And then a few minutes later, they're snoring. So so it can be intense, but if that's too much for you, you don't put them on as forcefully. You move slower, you let a little bit more air in there. For things that have a pump, you pump it less. So you can modulate that to give yourself or someone else the best experience possible.
And when y'all are doing this in the clinic, you often
Yeah.
have more than one cup on at
Oh
the
yeah.
same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So more is not better. It's the same thing. Like one or two aspirin are probably good for you. Don't take the whole bottle. So you don't have to completely cover the body. And I'm saying that knowing that there's an Instagram photo of somebody putting 50 on my back just because there was no therapeutic indication for that. It was just to see. To be honest, I saw a photo from a guy in Thailand. He had about maybe 15 to 20 on his back. And I said, "Well, I'm bigger than he is. And I know we have more cups here. Let's take a fun photo." So I think we got about 50 on. But the problem was, as you run out of real estate and the skin keeps getting tighter and tighter. So every time one was put on lower, one would pop off the top. So we managed to get it to work where we got the photo. But then we quickly took the cups off. It was too intense. But yes, when
Wow.
we're treating, we kind of want to frame out an area, right? So you want to, if it's the low back, we want to go all through the QL across the hips. Really open up anything that may be tight and look at a person as a whole being rather than it's just this part, right? So we might find some areas down the quad or the thigh that even though we're treating the low back, well, those are pretty tight, and that might be good for a cup too.
Okay. Can you go over again the contraindication. So you kind of
Oh, yeah,
mentioned
yeah, yeah.
pregnancy,
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
wounds.
So deep vein thrombosis. So if you have a big vein somewhere, do not put a cup over it. That's general. I don't care if it's the working out and you got giant guns or something like that. Just in general, don't do that. If you have skin irritations, right, there is some indication that it might help with eczema, but you don't cup right where the eczema is. So if there's any skin eruptions, any irritations, avoid those areas. For most people, they've got some real estate to move around. So even if you're not directly where it hurts because there is something there, a little off to the side is going to get circulation through that whole area. Pregnancy is an interesting one where I've actually seen pregnant women get cupped, but we don't have data on that, right? So erring on the side of caution, I would say pregnant women, please avoid it. Um, it might be healthy, it might not, but this is not something that we can ethically study. Yeah, so let's just avoid it altogether. I mentioned deep vein thrombosis, hemophiliacs is another one. I don't think they would. Truth be told, 23 years in practice, I never met anyone that was like diagnosed definitely a hemophiliac. I've had plenty of people taking blood thinners and getting acupuncture, and they're fine. We would probably lean off the cupping if somebody was on a significant dose of blood thinners, and that's something that if somebody is on blood thinners, please talk to the prescribing physician before you go get cupping. It should be a conversation with who's ever doing the cupping as well, but make sure you get a green light from the guy that or the man or woman who's writing that script. I'm sorry, I did not want to have a gender there. The doctor who's giving you the medicine, and that all these things are, in case something were to go wrong, let's take away the variables that we can control.
You mentioned earlier that the color of the bruise doesn't necessarily mean if it's better or worse, and it could be different for different people.
Yeah.
But I guess my first question is, will you get a bruise most of the time? And then once you have a bruise, how long does it take
Okay.
for that to go away?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about this bruise because if you go on Pinterest or you see an acupuncturist or anybody that's doing cupping these days, post a chart on some kind of social media, right? They'll have like this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this, and without getting into a bunch of weird Chinese medicine diagnoses, which I would have to teach you the whole lot of Chinese medicine for you to understand what blood stasis is versus, dead blood versus all these weird concepts. Um, in general, the darker the color, we would say, oh, there's more stagnation there. There's something stuck there, right? This is, the concept of bad blood has been around since Hippocrates, since before Hippocrates, right? This blood is no good. We got to get it out, right? So they'd say, oh, if it was dark, that blood was good. Now, but there's some tricks there, right? So I took a course years ago where the guy had been trained in Taiwan, and he said in the 80s, you would have medical providers in hospitals doing cupping. You'd have, clinicians outside doing cupping. And then you'd have like what they called spa cupping. And then you have these like charlatans, right? So they would do cupping and they would always be selling something, right? So they do the cupping, but before they did the cupping, they'd vigorously rub the surface of your skin. They'd start breaking up those capillaries a little bit beforehand. They put the cup on. Now, oh my God, you're purple. You're so sick, you need this medicine. Now, we do get some pretty dark marks. And if you look at Michael Phelps, in what was it, 2016, those marks on him look significant. But here's the trick. He just hopped out of the pool. His trainer, whoever was doing that cupping, put those cups on while he still had blood surging through his body, right? He just sprinted. So of course those marks are going to get darker, right? So darkness doesn't necessitate or necessarily mean that this is a good treatment. What means it's a good treatment is you feel better afterwards. Now, the bruises themselves, right? We talked about this creating of this, increased blood flow, the separation of the tissue, the skin from the fascia from the muscle, giving things room to move. But those broken capillaries, and technically it's not a bruise, it's ecchymosis, which is different. It's not a hematoma, it's not a trauma, but that's super nerdy and we all call it a bruise. But within that, it, those capillaries, that loose blood has to get cleaned up, right? So there is an increased circulation to that area. Now, what we can say is that can last a couple of weeks, depending on the darkness of that bruise. But it's also kind of like if it clears up quicker, your circulatory system's working well. So it can be an indicator of overall health, but don't, if you want, you can Google or go on Pinterest and look for a cupping chart. Do not hang a lot of value on that, though. That's not the end all be all. It's more the outcome than anything else.
Okay. So let's talk about cupping at home.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier we probably shouldn't be using the fire cupping method at home because that definitely involves more risk. I'm a pediatrician, so just the word fire, I'm like, no, let's not go there.
And I'm a pyromaniac, so I'm like fire, yes. But then, no, leave that to professionals. Yes.
So, the kit that you sent me had these silicone cups, and before we started recording, you told me it's almost impossible to get too much pressure from these. So kind of talk to us about if, we don't have any of those contraindications, we want to try this at home, what kind of cup should we look for and what are the best practices?
This is so great. And to speak to its folk medicine roots, if you go to an Asian grocery store and you go down to the aisle that has all the health products, right? They normally have some like massage tools and everything. Somewhere on that shelf, there's a cupping kit. So if you're going to use the plastic cups with the one-way valve on the top, those are the ones that you're more likely, and you see a lot of PTs using them, a lot of massage therapists using them, and even acupuncturists. For me, I don't like them because I have to sterilize everything, right? And what we use Cavicide, and that corrodes plastic so quickly. So yes, it's sterile, but it starts looking like it's breaking down. The other issue I have with that is that one-way valve in the top pulls air up. Now, if we do cup over, let's say, a cut or a scrape that we can't see, there is a possibility some fluid is getting up into that one-way valve, and I can't guarantee I can sterilize that. But for home use, for you and your loved ones, for your own personal kit, the pump cup is a good option. It's all over the internet. You go to Amazon, you put in cupping sets, you'll find 30 different varieties. With that, though, you have to look at the user or the instructions there. It'll say 3 pumps, 5 pumps maximum. Because if you keep pumping, you will eventually get blood blisters. You will bruise the skin too much and possibly hurt yourself. Now, the silicone cups are my go-to safe ones, right? And the silicone cups are pretty much just press the thing onto the body where you want the cup to go. It'll squeeze the air out of the sides and it'll stay. Right. And because it's a finite volume, you really can't get it on too much. Now, those ones I sent you have a nice handle on the top. So if you were to do some sliding cupping where you put oil down on first, you can slide with that handle. The other thing is that handle acts like a plunger. You just press that all the way down. And sometimes what will happen is if you get a really good suction, that plunger doesn't come back up, right? It stays firmly in place. With all of these, depending on the intensity that you press is going to be how strong the cups go on. So if you prefer a milder sensation or a stronger sensation, you can dial that in based on how hard you press. The silicone cups, you literally burp the sides like Tupperware to take them off. So, if it's too strong, pop it off, try it again. And there's some freedom there, right? And if you're doing an area that you can't get yourself and somebody's helping you, make sure you have an open conversation, right? Oh, is that too much? No. Hey, I think you missed it. Could you put another one here or something like that? But there is some freedom with this. It should be intuitive. This came out of people's, homes. So it wasn't this heavy, hey, I got to go to medical school. And if I don't get the cadaver lab right, I'm not going to know what I'm looking at. It's no, does it hurt here? Yeah. More than likely you'll be okay.
Okay. And then leave it on 10 to 15 minutes max?
What I would say is if it's your first time doing it, give it 5 minutes, take it off. If it's not dark enough or it doesn't feel better, put it on again. Once you kind of get the hang of it, 10 to 15 minutes seems to be the dose per area, right? So let's say you only have 3 or 4 cups and your whole shoulder's hurting you. Maybe you do 2 or 3 in the front, you wait the 10, 15 minutes, you take them off, Now you have somebody help you put them on your, the top of your shoulder or the shoulder blade behind you, and then do 10, 15 minutes like that. So 10 to 15 minutes in that place, is a safe dose. But you can, I've seen some people, I'll tell a story once. I was in a Trader Joe's. This is going to be a good story if it starts with the Trader Joe's.
Getting
And
snacks.
I don't even remember. I haven't been to Trader Joe's. The parking lots, I don't care where you are in the country, the parking lot of Trader Joe's is always hell. Everyone I've ever been in, it'll be somebody in a Prius with a coexist sticker that's giving you the finger. So my wife's at one end of the aisle and I'm at the other, and we probably were looking at snacks. And this woman walks by. Now she's a CrossFitter. How do I know? She's got muscles on top of muscles, sports bra, short shorts on. She walks past me. My wife sees me staring at what she thinks is her backside. And she makes this face. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to get killed. And then I go, no. Wait. Just wait until she passes you. This girl had bruises from her neck all the way down to her ankles, just cups on top of cups. And I can tell the level and the intensity that she works out at. I don't know if that dose was too much or not enough. She was covered in cupping marks. And part of the reason is probably whatever exercise she was doing was like tearing apart her whole body. But it was I managed to get out of the doghouse when my wife saw her back.
Nice. Okay. So then once you do it, when can you repeat it? Do you just wait until the bruises go away, or
you want them to be almost non-visible?
Okay.
And this is a therapy like other things. So it's much harder to say, here's the course of antibiotic, or it's harder to say, here's the course for this versus like the antibiotics are 7 days, right? With this, some people, they respond very well. Hey, it may be 2 or 3 weeks until they need to do it again. Some people might go, wow, that felt great. The bruises are gone. It's only been 5 days. Yeah, you can do that again. And to the point before, if you still have the bruises in a certain area, but you're still getting some pain, try some areas where you don't have cups. Wait a couple of days and try it again.
So it sounds like it's very individual. You kind of have to play it by ear, see how it goes. Also see how you're feeling, because maybe
that's why the book's so
feel
short.
Fine. Yeah, you feel fine.
There's so many variables that are, I can't give a concrete answer for this. It's not like that. What feels right? That intuitiveness of the treatment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me a little bit about stacking. What is stacking?
Yeah. So stacking, I borrowed this term from gym bros. If you go to a gym and you ask the biggest guy there what their stack is, they will rattle off a list of supplements that'll include everything from amino acids to possibly controlled substances to how much protein they're eating a day to when and how they take their creatine and, their whey protein. But it means like these services I'm doing together or these supplements I'm taking together to get a certain effect. We use that in our office because in addition to acupuncture and cupping and, massage and moxibustion gua sha, the traditional services, we have another 7 or 8 services, which are a little bit, they're modern. And we brought those in because they all hit the body in a slightly different way, but they elicited some similar responses, reducing inflammation, improving immune system function, increasing circulation. And we realized we had so many services that we could put together packages that made sense for specific conditions, right? So these are combo meals, if you will. If somebody's coming in pain, well, I know that we can do X, Y, and Z, and each one of these help a patient feel better. So how can we maximize that synergistic effect in one visit, right? Everything we do as a therapy, it might take multiple visits, but if you have 3 or 4 interventions at one time, maybe there's less multiple visits. Maybe there's more time in between those visits. Maybe you have something acute that's not too severe and we can knock it out right then and there. So, we're in allergy season now. Cupping, we can do some cupping on the chest, the upper back, to open up the sinuses, the airways. We pair that with salt therapy, which somebody sits in our salt cocoon for a half an hour, and they'll inhale microfine salt dust. They can't taste it, they can't smell it, but they'll bring that all the way down into their lungs, and it's like spending a day at a beach, right? So we're getting the salt to dry out the mucous membranes, hopefully fight some bacteria, help clear out any allergens that may be in that airway, but not just like a neti pot where you're flushing the sinuses out all the way down into the lungs, right? And so we've now done two things that help, instead of one. And how much does that add to that experience? How much further can we take? Now we can add acupuncture to that and specifically target sinus points and respiratory health points and immune system points, right? So now we've taken it even a step further. So we have some pre-made stacks that we have on our website. A lot of people will call and say, hey, I want to do this because I'm feeling this way or that way. And then sometimes we have some people that come in, they'll make their own stacks up because they've got generalized conditions and they just want to try services. But we're there to kind of customize stuff for people as well, too. So we can put our experience to test. And we're constantly tweaking to get better protocols. We're constantly adding services to improve our options for people and hopefully find that right mix, for the individual that's getting those services.
Perfect. Well, that brings me to my other question is, at what point would a person benefit from seeing a professional to help them with the cupping? Are there certain conditions that you're like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing that at home. You should
Yeah.
probably see someone that's trained.
I would say this is a severity question more than anything else, right? If you're not walking because your back hurts, and that does not go away, trying cupping might be like, taking an eyedropper full of water to a forest fire. You're not going to see too much, even if you do get something. And then when you do finally see your primary care or a pain specialist, they're going to say, "What the hell are these marks?" Uh, you know, uh, please explain that you were hurt before those marks were there. Uh, but within that, yes, there's a limitation, right? So if it's minor aches and pains, if it's something that's chronic and nagging and you've had it checked out, yes, this can be a tool in your toolbox to help manage that pain and get better. Um, if you feel like it's above and beyond a certain level, yes, please seek a professional to give it a go. And hopefully, that professional you'll see won't puff out their chest and claim to cure you. If it's out of their league, they'll refer you to the next person down the line, which may be a neurologist, pain management specialist, and whatever intervention for imaging that you might need. So use
Perfect.
caution, use common sense. But if it feels like it's out of your league, it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. What else do you want people to know about cupping?
Look, this is for everybody. One of the reasons I love this is there isn't a culture that I've talked to that hasn't had some experience with it, right? And I'm not going to say Antarctica. I don't know what they do there, but all the other continents, there are people whose family has been doing cupping for a long time. And so sharing that history, sharing that experience, try a safe and effective therapy. I mean, that's where I am with it.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I think for Antarctica, we'd probably have to ask the polar bears,
Yeah, I
but
don't
they,
know.
they
I don't
might
know
be
how
a
much they're
little
going to be
too
talking.
hairy, a little too hairy to do cupping. Who knows?
I don't know how close we're getting to them either.
Okay. This has been so great. Thank you for sharing so much information about this. And I know that it's going to help a lot of people. And your book explains everything. So, for people that want a little bit more detail in this, and even like one of the things that you go over is different oils that you can
Yeah.
use, and those kinds of things, then definitely pick up a copy of this book. Okay, so I want to ask you some more personal questions and get
Yes.
into some deeper topics.
Let's do
So
it.
the
If I
first one
cry, I'm
is,
sorry.
hey, let's do it. Cry. I like that. That makes it better.
I'm
Um,
very emotional.
what do you wish more people knew? And this can be about anything. It could be about cupping or anything else. What do you wish more people knew?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. I'm going to try and say this without getting political at all. I wish more people knew that other cultures in no way take away from your culture, and learning about them and having an open exchange of ideas only makes everybody better. We can do that without appropriation. We can do that as a nice cultural exchange, and we all win.
Yeah. Learn from one another, value each person's lived experience and what's been passed down for centuries in their cultures. I agree. I think that's very wise and that can be very helpful. How do you define success in this lifetime?
Oh God, in the current system, I think it's bank account. But ideally, for me, and I can only speak for my lifetime. How many people can I help? Really, that's the end goal. Look, Ram Dass says we're all walking each other home. Yeah, if you look at it like that, yeah, we're all going we're all going to die someday, and we might as well make this as pleasant for other people as possible.
Yes. It's the only thing that's guaranteed is that we're all going to die, right? So, okay, speaking of kicking the bucket,
Yeah. Oh
is
God.
there a
Oh,
goal?
yeah.
Is there a goal or a dream that has evaded you thus far, or something that you have left on your bucket list that you'd be willing to share with us?
I never made a bucket list. I think I try. Well, maybe I swing at too many things. But yeah, I have a list of projects that are sitting there right now, going like, "Oh, you don't have the bandwidth to do that." But that's a right now thing. My mentor, I blew my podcast co-host mind with this when I said to him, "Yeah, my mentor said you can do everything, but just not all at once." Right. And he was talking about pacing yourself, and I think I might have been going off about like, oh, I want to do this, but I got to do that, and I got to do this, and I got to do. Uh, but within that, I think I kind of want to see where the ride goes. Does that make any sense? On one hand, this is a miserable existence. On the other hand, it's such a gift to be able to say, oh my God, I never if I look back 10 years, I never thought that would have happened then. I never thought that would have happened then. And there were such defining moments in who I am that like I just want to see what happens next. It's kind of like watching a movie. You don't want it to end too early, and you really just want to catch every moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you're the kind of person that you just take advantage of whatever opportunities in front of you and you just go for it. So I think for some people, having that list helps them because otherwise maybe they stay in the
True
comfort
to it.
zone,
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're the kind of person that you're like, oh, just like what happened to you when you were pursuing medicine, you're like, oh, this opportunity looks really
Yeah.
cool. I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to take advantage of that. So you just go after all of it. And I'm like that too. I just kind of go after everything at the same time and then end up rocking myself in the corner when I have too much stuff on my
Yeah,
plate.
yeah.
But
You're catching me on a non-burnt out day. Like, what'd you do today? Oh, I rested. It was good. It was good. Like, you
I
didn't
love
cry
it.
about anything? Not today. Tomorrow. I
There's
know I'm
always
going to walk
plenty
in
of
the
time to
clinic and
cry.
there's going to be a list of things that are not done.
Oh yeah, my perpetual to-do list. But okay, what does it mean to be human?
I think, God, if I knew that, I'd be enlightened in charging, $40,000 per seminars. But I really think it's to live in the experience, right? And it sounds so trite to say we're human beings, but yeah, I mean we're here to exist, we're here to be, and experience that, and the more you live in that experience, I think you find more satisfaction in things. I mean, it's real easy for me to scream at somebody in the car because they did something stupid. But, if I sit and I pull back and I really think about things, oh, maybe something's going on in their life that's an experience they're having that is not particularly pleasant, and maybe I should just get back to the pleasant one I was having minutes before that happened. But that took a lot of therapy to get to that point, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think as humans, our default is to be very reactive,
Yeah.
but that's why they teach mindfulness and all of these methods to try to live more in the moment. And instead of just being reactive all the time, it's healthier for us, but it probably helps us enjoy life even
Yeah.
more when we're in that mindfulness. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, you've given us so much information. So if you could please tell my listeners where they can connect with you, what products and services you offer so that everybody can find you.
So it's a big list of products and services, but what I would do is recommend you check out my website, Charm City Integrative. Charm City is the moniker for Baltimore. Integrative is we're making it all work together. So TIVE, not integrated. But you can find out more about me, more about the services we have, more about my book, and just a little bit about everything we have going on.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. So thank you so much, Dr. Ingegno, for
Oh,
everything that you are
perfect. Beautiful.
doing and
Like a native
helping so many
Italian.
people. And thank you for writing this book, and so that
Oh,
we
thank
can
you.
discover the benefits of cupping at home. And I hope that you have a very plantastic day.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Tom Ingegno, doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and I am human.
Thank you for listening to another episode of I Am Human. I would be so honored if you subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. We love our listeners and take your feedback seriously. If you have questions or constructive feedback, you can email us at podcast@dryami.com. That's podcast@doctoryami.com. I am your host, Dr. Yami Cazorla-Lancaster. I Am Human is produced by myself and Alejandra Parra. Graphics designed by Alejandra Parra. Music by Angela Soph with Glowbox Productions and edited by the Castos production team. Remember, human, you are here for a reason. Have fun, explore, and live your life to the fullest.